Following that breaking news this morning out of the NFL, with the Steelers star defensive end T.J. Watt will not be reporting to mandatory minicamp today. That's been confirmed by our Jonathan Jones. The former Defensive Player of the Year is holding out for a long-term extension in Pittsburgh. Watt has just 1 year left on that current deal, set to make around $30 million this season. He spent, of course, his 8 years career in Pittsburgh and currently the all-time sack leader. So you want to keep that when it comes to that piece. But that is not the only news out of the AFC North. Out in Cincinnati, the Bengals and their star defensive end, Trey Hendrickson, also not reporting for mandatory minicamp. JJ confirming that as well. The all-pro pass rusher coming off a season, maybe his best year, led the league in sacks, and he said that he will not play the season without a new contract. He has 1 year also remaining on his deal and is set to make just under $16 million in base salary when it comes to him, and maybe returning there to Cincy. For more on this, I want to bring in our NFL insider, Jonathan Jones. And JJ, when you think about it, I want to start there with Cincinnati, because a couple weeks ago, or maybe a month ago, Joe Burrow kind of painted the picture of how important Trey was for this team last year and how he wants his guys to get paid. That has not been the case so far. We know how Cincy operates there, but your reaction to this news, of course, him not reporting today.
Yeah, not a surprise at all that Trey Hendrickson not in attendance for Cincinnati Bengals mandatory minicamp. Look, this has been, he was sort of the odd man out, right? They paid Joe Burrow more than a year ago. They paid Jamar Chase. They paid T. Higgins. And then there's Trey Hendrickson, who's going into his age 31 season, which I think we all know in the NFL, outside of the quarterback and the specialist positions, right? Kicker and punter, you get over 30, teams don't really want to pay you. And while he is coming off his best season of his career, certainly when you look at sack totals, the fact is that the Bengals historically do not like shelling out a lot of money to 30-plus-year-old players. And so this has been going on for some time. When he left New Orleans Saints and signed that contract with the Cincinnati Bengals, it was not with a lot of guaranteed money. And then he tacked on a 1 year, $21 million contract extension. That is what he is living out right now. But in the time since he got that deal, of course, the edge rusher salaries have skyrocketed. And at the top of that list is AFC North foe Myles Garrett at $40 million in average annual salary, a contract signed this offseason. So there is a gigantic gap between Trey Hendrickson and the top of the market. One of the issues that Trey Hendrickson is facing with the Bengals is not only have they sort of doled out so much money to other players, but is he a Myles Garrett type of player? Yes, he gets the sack production. Does he stop the run in the same way? Is he game planned around in the same way that, for example, a Myles Garrett or a Max Crosby may be? And so these are the issues that are facing Trey Hendrickson. They have been facing Trey Hendrickson for some time, dating back to last year when he wanted a contract extension. We're in this spot now. The United States Vice President is begging him to come sign with the Cincinnati Bengals. But it doesn't look like anything's going to happen anytime soon.
So no movement there when it comes to Trey Hendrickson and his situation in Cincy. Staying in the same division there, when you're talking about a 4-time All-Pro, a 7-time Pro Bowler, Defensive Player of the Year in 2021, and T.J. Watt, one of those cornerstones for that defense. Art Rooney said earlier this offseason that, look, it's going to happen at some point, but here it is. It's day one for minicamp. What are you hearing about his situation there?
So, again, I don't know how close they are. And this is something that the Pittsburgh Steelers really should have gotten in front of, because you know what you have in T.J. Watt. I just talked about how he's over 30. Yes, he's entering his age 31 season. He is set to count about $30 million against the cap, but really base salary of just over $21 million. They have seen this coming for some time. And over the past 2 years, he hasn't missed a game. He's played in 17 games each of the past 2 years. He tapered off his production, did taper off there at the end of the season, where he was on another Defensive Player of the Year trajectory, and then he just was not getting the sack production. But there, make no mistake about it, this is the heart and soul of the Pittsburgh Steelers defense. What complicates matters for Pittsburgh is when they made the deal for DK Metcalf and paid him $30 million in average annual salary. Well, T.J. Watt, who has put so much into that organization, who very much is a Pittsburgh Steeler, far more than DK Metcalf, is seeing that and saying, well, hold on, you know, and we could have gotten this deal done last year where it would have cost you much less, right? Before Myles Garrett signed for 40, before Danielle Hunter got an extension at 36, before Max Crosby at 35. But the Pittsburgh Steelers did not. And so he played out last year. He wants that new deal. He sees they're giving out money to guys, that the bank is open, but not for him. And so he, right now, is sitting out mandatory minicamp. Ultimately, a deal will get done with the Pittsburgh Steelers and T.J. Watt, because it has to, because T.J. Watt can't be anything other than a Pittsburgh Steeler.
Yeah, right now, you just mentioned the number is in that between that 35 to 40. Of course, Myles Garrett, the newest, highest paid defensive end, a defensive player right now in NFL history. Others trying to get to pen to paper as well. But when you look at both situations here, is it a chance that either guy is watching the other like, I'm not going to sign until you do, vice versa here?
Yeah, I'm not sure that these two necessarily deal with one another, right? If we were talking about T.J. Watt and Myles Garrett, that could be a standoff. We're not really talking about the same player. I know that we are both voting on these players when it comes to edge rusher in the all-pro ballots, but they do different things, right? Trey Hendrickson, again, really and truly, and I don't mean to diminish his accomplishments, but he's really a sack artist, right? T.J. Watt is a guy who can sack the quarterback, who is forcing fumbles, who is getting interceptions, who is changing game plans, right? And so T.J. Watt is really going to go in between that 35 and 40. Trey Hendrickson, you know, I think a reasonable person would tell you he should get into the 30s. A team that would want his services probably would pay him that. But there are 31 teams who would pay T.J. Watt $35 million and above for his services, right? And so that's going to be the difference there. Whatever happens with one, I don't really see it impacting the other.
Real quickly, chances that this could get ugly before week one, maybe both dealt, one dealt. How do you see this playing out?
If anyone is dealt, I could see it being Trey Hendrickson. I do not see, under any circumstances, T.J. Watt being on another team other than the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think ultimately they are going to come to terms on an agreement, one that they probably should have come to terms on, like I said, months ago, if not a year ago. Right now, the minicamp fines that can total more than $100,000, they can be waived. Training camp fines cannot be waived, and those start getting to $40,000 a day. You can make a lot of money. That money is legitimate, and so we could see some hold-ins once we get to July and August with either one of these guys. But ultimately, if we're talking about missing games, so rarely do we see guys miss games. I think Chris Jones was the last one, and even by the end of the season, he was regretting missing that one game check because you can just never make that sort of money back.
Real quickly, JJ, and I hate to pin you against the wall. If Trey is on the move, you know, what's a team that's out there maybe looking for his services when it comes to that pass rushing edge?
Yeah, I don't know, because it's just because it's so early. Because honestly, you know, I know that we're going up, and this is breaking news, and it is legitimate, right? But this isn't a surprise to Cincinnati Bengals, and it's not a surprise to anybody around the league, especially because you can waive these fines. Of course, he's going to miss the mandatory minicamp. There's a bunch of dudes who are going to miss mandatory minicamp, and it's really not going to affect anything. It's really, truly not going to affect anything in the negotiations. It's just the next step in a long negotiating process. So I think we're still a very far away ways from determining where Trey Hendrickson, if he's ever dealt, which again, don't know that he will be, determining where that could be.
All right, let's head to D.C. because something that's coming out new this morning that you actually just tweeted about, Terry McLaurin. We saw what he did last year with Jaden Daniels, and for years we've been saying he's a wide receiver one. That was on display with 13 touchdowns, but he's also holding out. What's the conversation there with him and the Commanders looking like before minicamp?
Yeah, so he's entering his age 30 season. Obviously, he is such a key piece of what the Commanders have been able to do. He is a team captain and so crucial to what they do. Remember, of course, he signed that contract with them a couple of years ago when there was just so much tumult going on with the organization. It was a 3-year contract extension, about $68 million in June of 2022. Well, it's up now. And this is the final year of his contract, $15.5 million due in base salary, while, again, the wide receiver market has exploded. We're not talking about Jamar Chase money. He's not going to go up there and get $40 million a year. But this is typical. You turned in a great year. You've meant a lot to an organization. This organization has high hopes when it comes to the postseason and the success that they can continue to build off of. And you want to say, hey, well, how about me? I've seen the deals that you've made for a Marshawn Lattimore, bringing in a Laramie Tunsil, right? it's time to pay me because this is my last big bite at the apple. Terry McLaurin, 30 years old, right? You don't know if you're going to continue to have that sort of success, and so you want to go ahead and get it with the team that you are with right now. I wouldn't necessarily call it contentious, because contentious would mean that this is more contentious relative to other contract negotiations around the league. This, to me, seems very similar to a lot of things. Ultimately, I think a deal will get done. When that happens, we'll see if it happens before training camp. But again, not a surprise to anyone in the nation's capital that Terry McLaurin is not showing up to mandatory minicamp.
All right, well, teams are getting ready for minicamp. Our Jonathan Jones in midseason form per usual when he's on HQ. Appreciate it, my friend, on all that breaking news when it comes to DNs trying to get paid and wideouts as well. Don't forget, we always got you covered the closer we get to training camp. And, of course, week 1 kicking off on CBS. But you can catch everything here at CBS Sports. We got everything, news, highlights, scores. Can you read that? It's all here per usual.